definitions, like you see.
Or in the front, like,
or the front, yeah.
you know, so like our bylaws, they have terms defined usually at the beginning of the
Right.
section. And it doesn't have to be a lot of terms, maybe it's things that we find are problem areas that need extra explanation. I think that indoor recreation part
Right.
needs to be specified, because it's only for outdoor recreation. There's no indoor recreation funding available. It's only able to supplement outdoor recreation. And then also creation under historic. You can't create under historic, even though it says it on the chart, maybe it should spell it out.
Yeah, it should be more specific what that means.
Right, because
How
like a,
historic are we? Yesterday was history, really. But
Oh,
that's not
yeah.
necessarily the house or structure that would be considered historic, so.
because I mean, even like a statue or anything, that's creating,
Those aren't
Yeah,
considered a
there's a
capital
little,
improvement though.
yeah, I know.
yeah,
We don't really have an art center, I mean, an art category either, so. And we won't, I mean, we just don't, it's not within the structure.
Yeah, the next thing is add a checklist to the application. We did talk about that.
Most of the historic is preserved.
Right.
Preserve,
Right.
Like we
restore.
already have.
Yep.
Did you mean our checklist that we look at? Cause there's already,
Is that what it was? Is that what we referred to when we said add the checklist?
because we have the required attachments checklist, right?
Right.
I think when we were talking about it, it was more so like the required attachments were already in there, but then we still had a series of projects get before us that did not include everything.
right.
Right.
So it was
But
almost like we,
was it, I don't remember if it was the application 1 or 2. Cause, so step 2 has a checklist under the required attachments. I'm honestly, I'm not even remembering why I added this one, what it was in reference to, if it was.
I think, if I'm remembering it right, I think it was, we were talking about when we had, you know, a series of arguably frivolous projects come.
Oh,
We
no,
pretty
you know
much
what it
said,
was?
these are all missing key components that the application said they needed to have. So
Right.
why are we even deliberating on them? We should have just rejected them out of the gate and they didn't meet.
So you know what it was, so you know how we have the eligibility requirements that we go through, that checklist,
Yeah.
that's what we discussed, adding that, but that's at least a 2-page document, and it's broken down, so it has that first section that, and is it in here? It has the first section that is, applicable to all projects, and then it breaks it down under,
But they don't really need all the stuff on step 1, right? Because here's the thing, required attachment says applicable on step 2. So who's
Right.
deciding if they're applicable? I mean, maybe they decided they weren't all applicable. Who's making that decision? Is that something,
Right.
right? Cause you're giving them that choice.
So maybe we remove that word, if applicable.
Well, are we gonna have any sort of checklist for step 1? Or are we?
Well, we have it.
so typically what we've done is we'll get the application and we'll send it off to the coalition, get their feedback, and then we were going through our checklist. So I think the question is, where do we see that checklist fitting in? Should it be,
But if they read the plan, everything that's on that checklist
It
that
is.
we're asking them,
Is in it.
you know? I mean,
Right.
I don't wanna do their homework for them, and they
True.
need to read the plan. If they're
Well,
gonna
on
submit an
step 1, there's
application.
literally 3 things and some of these projects we're getting in without 2
Without
out of the
any of
3.
those, right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, well then, we
So
should
maybe
see
we
that
just
right
put,
away.
maybe we should just put boxes next to each of those 3 things, just,
Yeah,
so we
so
can
that
add
they know,
checklist?
please, and maybe even please check.
yeah. It says, please attach the
Directions.
following.
I mean, we can do it in like a
Just put a
bolded,
little checkbox.
or a bolded font even, so that it's more,
Yeah.
Right,
visible, like the step 2.
Yeah, cause I guess the whole thing is we don't want them doing all this work like step 2 if they're not.
Right, if it's not
You
going
don't make
forward.
it.
right.
But, you know what I could see, Nancy, underneath, this chart? Maybe adding the general, cause I know you said, yeah, they're supposed to read the plan, but I don't know how many people are.
Didn't I add that on my, they've written that stuff
general-
in on the back of,
Oh, maybe.
Where did
Yours
you
is
write
in there. Yours is,
Well, it's kind of confusing too, because you got the really good one.
I almost
On
wonder if
page
we
8.
work out like yeah, so I was along the same lines. Do we
Oh, yeah.
work out like a cover page for step 1? So
No.
that this is actually page 2, and then page 1 would be essentially the top part of that with the definitions, and then also the yes, no grid.
okay.
Yeah,
Well,
because you
so-
got this really nice one there, and now you got the half, I don't want to say
So
half
do we
baked,
want to
but-
replace this one? This one. This
With
was
this
in,
one?
if you brought your packet from last week, your items were right next to mine.
oh, right, yeah, so I had written that
So
in there.
So we have this existing, box.
Yep.
From the
The old
coalition.
one, kinda.
Right. And then, so Sue had inserted right here, it was the general evaluation criteria, which was, that's right off of the checklist that we've been going, and it's also in the plan.
It's really very typical of people to think I have a really good idea and a project, and I could maybe get CPC funding, support and funding for it. But if, it could be a great idea, but if it doesn't fit into our
Doesn't fit.
categories or the restrictions that we have, that we didn't implement, that are the Commonwealth's implementation when the law was passed, that makes it frustrating for them. But if they could see that up front and make sure they get this,
Yeah, that's why I
that
think
page
that
8
stuff should be
right
on
away,
there.
so that they could say, oh golly, I don't think this really would work.
So-
What are your thoughts
Or
on if
ask
we got
somebody,
rid of
you know.
the simplified table
Yeah.
and only provided the
Yes.
detailed one?
So we
Yeah.
provide the detailed chart and then also the evaluation criteria. So maybe like you said, to Bobby's point, maybe step 1 isn't just one page.
Pages.
Maybe it's a little bit of an introduction in case they haven't read the plan and they
Yeah.
just go right to the application. Maybe the first page is, CPC application or whatever we want on the top with, so page 16 of our plan has the general evaluation criteria, and that's exactly what Sue had inserted here. And she also included an additional item that says, is this a capital expense? Because it has to be a capital project. So I think that is a
Maybe a
good
little
one.
disclaimer that says, you really need to read the plan if you wanna apply for money.
Yeah. But we're adding the checklist, right? We'll add that.
But maybe add it on the step 1 application at the top.
Have you read the plan?
Our big checklist that we do, our
No,
own?
on the step 1 application itself, just put on there. Plan must be read before,
Okay.
Yeah.
before
with a check box.
submitting.
We
and a
advise-
check
We
box.
advise-
How
The
about
only-
we advise, you read the plan, because
Before you submit a
you're
step
not
1
getting the money,
application.
no.
And then have access to anybody that they need clarification, if they don't understand or have further questions
They can
about,
call.
what if I did X or something like that? It would save them the time
Right.
It will.
of going
It
through the
will.
process, and would also make us feel better that we didn't have to say, no, your plan
When's
doesn't
our step
qualify.
1 due?
I think right now it's opening on
Mid-October.
September 15th and closing on
Mid-October?
October 15th.
Another thing would be, just come to one of our meetings. If you're gonna apply in September, why don't you come to one of our meetings ahead of time and talk to us about it, so we can help you?
Yeah.
Rather than having it to be you or me, or somebody just calls up somebody that,
Well, and I think we've been encouraging, people who have questions to go to parks, go to historic, go to the
Yeah.
unnecessary open space, different committees as well, because that makes sense. So one of the items under general evaluation criteria is, it says projects that have support from other relevant town boards and committees. So I do see this, so I think Bobby's right. Instead of having it, the checklist on the
Yeah.
back, where maybe they're not even printing that second
Yeah.
page,
Yeah.
let's have it as page 1. General, I think these are all good, and yes, we want them to read the plan, but these are like the major focus.
Yeah, those
That
are the
is-
key points.
So we would have to have like a page 1, maybe on the backside have the chart, page 2,
so
and then
you're
the
doing it
third
that black
page.
and white one and not the,
No.
oh, the color one?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
I think that's
So-
more specific.
Yeah.
It defines what the categories are too, like acquire, what does that mean? So there's no
Right, I
doubt.
mean,
Right.
the other thing is if they go to a committee or board asking, the committee or board might not really even know if it's eligible.
That's
And
why I
it-
say, advise them
Exactly,
to
they
come
need
to
to
up-
come here,
to
right,
horse's mouth.
right, exactly.
Not that they can't
Should
go
we
and say, are you
also-
interested in this?
While we're there, should we put, essentially like in parentheses, when they're, the second line, when they're naming their entity, should we take that language and say, applications
Yeah.
from an individual not acting on behalf of a board, committee, or organization will not be accepted?
I think that's
that's
a
a good
good,
idea.
so I think, yeah, Sue had even on her little sample, she wrote in, cannot
Cannot be an individual.
Are
Individual.
we sure about that when it comes to historic houses, Nancy?
Are we sure of what about historic
That
houses?
an individual, oh, okay, sorry, I'm usually pretty
Oh,
loud.
could apply for money to preserve a historic house, is that what
Yeah.
you're saying?
It
I
would,
thought
there would
that's
need to be,
acceptable.
well, according to this, there would need to be an
Under the
intermediary. We would need to
definition,
give the funds
preserve.
to an intermediary that could re-grant them.
Yes, it would
We
have to-
can't give
Yeah, we
direct to an
can't give it to
individual.
an,
And it
yeah,
has to be on historic
says-
register.
So it needs to-
has
it needs to go
it's
from
not
like-
approved by the historic commission as well.
Yeah, it would, but it, under preserve, it says protection of personal or real property from injury, harm, or destruction.
It just can't
That's
go,
really very general.
you can't
Right.
shuffle from public to individual. There needs, you
Yeah.
need that nonprofit
So they would have
buffer
to
or
come
something
through
similar.
you for approval, and maybe their money would have to come
And that,
through
and
you.
that's part of the application anyways, that says that you, on the historic preservation part, you have to have, the property would probably have to be on the state inventory, a letter of support from the commission, from the building department, a review, because they're the structural experts, and then whether or not a building permit is required or a total structural review is required. And it's only for the one structure that we're talking about, not whatever else is on the property or.
Right, but is that from the coalition, or is that just from us?
No,
I
that
think
is.
We did it,
That's-
we invited, the building department because we felt that the historical commission are not the historical structural experts.
Right.
Where we have to, and we don't know all the general laws and the updated bylaws and things like that, but they do. So why not let them be involved? And they said they thought it was a logical thing.
So that part was something we added as a committee to the plan. But those two other items she first read, those are from the coalition, that it has to be on the register. If it's not on the register, it has to be,
The letter of support.
yeah.
Do we have any
significant
houses
to
on the register in town?
Do we have what?
Any
Any-
houses on the register in town?
There's two things. We have inventory. It's an inventory, not the register. There's two things. What the Commonwealth of Massachusetts had people do on historical commissions is record historical information about historical structures, starting with like 1976 with the bicentennial. So we've been adding to an inventory. On that inventory, there are two things that are on the National Historic Register, which is another step up. And that's the Wampanoag Royal Indian Cemetery down
Yep.
on 105, and the historic townhouse, Old Town Hall incorrectly, but that building was the only town hall we've ever had. Those are the only two, one's a site, one's a structure. So those are on the register. So, and what people would have to do is we would assume that we had already inventoried that property if they had a house.
So can we give them money to get them on the historical register?
No,
All
I
right,
don't think so. I don't think that would be considered preservation.
Because I think
I
that-
guess
so-
I thought from the beginning, some of the historic houses in Lakeville would be eligible to
Oh, yeah, they could be eligible.
get help.
And the other thing is with under the long-range plans for the historical commission is to have a first historic district in town, which would be basically the intersection at 105 and Precinct Street, along with Sampson Cemetery, and the church would be the only privately owned properties. Everything else, the Dickren Duran World War I Memorial Park, and everything else, all those buildings are all owned by the town of Lakeville. So it would be an easy thing to do. The cemetery is very quiet, and the church is sustaining at this point. So, I mean, there would not be people that would be objecting to historic district status, where sometimes residents don't
Right,
want to
because
have
it's
it
very
because they're
restrictive.
concerned about restrictions, like if they want to paint their house pink or something like that, you know. I mean, that's being silly, but it could be something that small. So that's one of the things that we're working on, is doing that. And so that would be the first historic district, which means there would be a historic district committee not the historical commission that would oversee it, so there's a separate group. So we have to get more volunteers that would be interested too in serving on a new committee. So I think, I'm not sure exactly how that changes the town bylaws, that we might have to have an addition or something amendment to the town bylaws, but I'm not positive. We haven't got that far yet. But that's what we're planning for before 2028. It's one of the bucket list of things we want to do. So did I answer your question or not?
I don't know, I guess I still
Well, I think,
feel like,
so I think the line that you have to be careful of is you don't want everybody who owns an old house coming to CPA looking to fix up their house because it's falling
Right,
apart.
right.
So I think it does have to go through certain standards, and just
Yeah.
like the land preservation has to have that chapter 97 protection, there is, if you go to the coalition website, or if you look at the Mass General Law, I believe there has to be certain restrictions placed on it as well.
Plus, it's not an easy thing to get on the National Historic Register. Not only does it have to be approved by the local commission, Massachusetts Historical Commission has to support it too. And they're very, they're more restrictive probably than we are. So it's not just any old house. It has to have a historic importance. It has to be in a condition. It can't be like vinyl sided or something like that. It's got to be, there's a lot of things that interfere with, maintenance over a long period of time and,
Right,
and changing a house
Right.
over
It
a long
can't be
period of
used for
time.
maintenance fee. You know that.
Make it not
Yeah.
really National Historic Register quality property. So,
and I think there'd only be a handful. I'm not thinking there's a really lot. I'm thinking about actually the history of the town of Middleborough, which was Lakeville before 1853, so I'm thinking there's probably only a handful of houses
I
from.
think John Lucy actually owns one of the oldest.
Right,
I- yeah,
that's
he
exactly
does.
what I'm thinking.
I think he does.
Yeah, he does.
It's the oldest house in town, but I'm saying there's only a few, and I just hope there's a way that we could help somehow to get them preserved. And put that restriction on them that says the next people that buy it can't
Right, have to preserve
paint it pink.
yeah, a lot of it is what kind of documentation you have in terms of records, like who was the builder, or was there an architect? Like, we don't have all the information on the historic library because that was 1900, so we have all those files, but homeowners have changed repeatedly. Sometimes people leave a book of a history. I have one with my house that was started by somebody, so it's good to have that sort of thing, but sometimes people take them and sell them. So they don't keep them with the house. They go for money,
Okay.
And then you find them in the antique
Okay, so,
shop.
It's okay.
All right.
sorry.
So the other thing I wanted to throw out, as we're moving through this, I don't know if it makes sense to form like a subgroup, maybe 2, maybe 3 people who want to work on the plan, go through it with a fine tooth comb, and then bring back a draft, or do we want to do all of it? Do we have few enough items that we want to change that we want to just do it during open meeting, or do we have substantial
I'd say from the
amounts?
very first day, Sue's been doing a lot of that stuff.
And Barbara had been too, but she's not with us anymore.
Right.
And if you need help, you could call out to any of us if you want help or whatever, but it's
Even if we
really,
looked at our own area, if the areas that, like the specific areas, if we looked at those to make sure they make sense and there's not redundancy or a problem where there's a conflict between 2 paragraphs and stuff like that. That could be our own groups, the
Bring
4
it back to
groups'
the committee,
responsibility.
commission, et cetera. Okay.
I mean, that's if she doesn't mind. But you probably did most of this plan yourself.
Yeah, I
From
mean,
my
Barbara helped me.
memory.
Yeah, I mean, Barbara helped me with some of the formatting and stuff, and I'm sure she'd do it again. Yeah, but just, yeah.
Add checklist to appendix of plan. That's the other thing we had said, we'll add, that chart to the appendix, just like we have the applications. List some expenditures that are not permissible. I don't have a list of them right now, but this was something we discussed. Which I think one of them is right up above where it says cannot be used to purchase supplies.
Right, I wonder
then
if we
the other
should put
one.
educational materials too. And mailings, cause I know Open Space wanted to send out a mailing and wanted to apply for CPA funds, and I mean, that's not, we don't supply money for mailings and stuff.
Yeah, that's not a capital project, but they could
Right.
probably go to the select board and get funds for that.
Right, through the budget.
Yeah.
I would think.
So cannot be used to purchase supplies, mailings,
Buildings,
mailings.
but I'm saying an additional thing would be like the greenhouses that were, you
Oh,
can't do a
right.
building or a shed or a,
No
lot of that was
indoor
in the
recreation
create
unless
stuff,
it's to support outdoor recreation.
okay?
Isn't that carried by the fact that create?
But so when we're talking about like adding definitions, maybe that's something we have to focus
Right,
on.
because when people say create, well, that means I could build a structure, but
Right.
if you go into the area, you find out that it doesn't mean that.
Right.
Didn't the coalition say something along the lines of they were
These
both
things you
considered
may
like
not do.
non-permanent structures, and that's why they didn't count as a capital improvement?
That's true. Yep,
Yep.
it couldn't be.
On page 7, and we have a Community Preservation Act funds may not be spent for the following purposes, and so maybe, you know, that is an important line to add in about creating. We say that gymnasiums, stadiums, or any similar structures, but maybe we need to add more to that line.
Yeah.
Yes, no.
Because that's where
Definitely.
confusion was.
Right. If there's no
Last
greenhouses,
time.
no portable no sheds, no.
Yeah, cause you
But-
think of gymnasiums and
Greenhouse.
stadiums like big, so now you're
Right.
thinking, oh, nothing big like that, but you're not
Yeah,
What's
cause
a
I
shed?
think,
adding the small stuff.
I think.
But you
the
are
only-
able to do a bathroom.
Right, I
with
was
some
just gonna say
storage
that.
if it's to support an outdoor field that you're now creating.
Right.
So that's where that line is. It's, if it's part of a capital improvement, capital
It
project.
can't be the capital
It
improvement.
can't just be a shed
No,
to support, the, whatever's there.
right.
So I have no indoor recreation, no movable structures, cannot create with historic.
Right, nothing at all. We can't create anything.
No.
Right,
Right. We can only preserve.
right.
Add examples of when project funds would need to be returned to the fund. Oh, yeah, okay, so, the funds would need to be returned to the fund if they're not expended within the allotted time frame and no extension has been granted. So that has to be, well, I guess that's when it hasn't been expended.
Extensions, you mean?
Well, I'm trying to remember why I added this one, that add examples of when project funds would need to be returned to the fund.
Like if they haven't, well, we do, if they're not used within the 2-year period,
They
it's
have
like
to
Parks
right.
Department, that's coming up in what,
Right.
November?
Right.
I think it is, so,
But that's what I mean, it hasn't been expended, but it has been set aside, so maybe that is what this was supposed to be about, okay. So.
Yeah, cause we're missing out on
after-
interest and everything.
It's
Cause
like
that money's been
just it's in
sitting.
limbo.
In limbo, right.
Without, granted extension. But then also where we had the excess funds, that had to go back. But that's pretty straightforward.
At completion of the project, really.
So unexpended at the end. Okay. And then, so I wanted to look at, under community housing. So we have goals, meet or exceed.
What page you on?
So I'm on page 10 of the plan. Meet or exceed at least one of the state standards for SHI, ensure new affordable housing is harmonious, strive to keep the current SHI units in perpetuity, promote use of existing buildings. So I think we should ensure new affordable housing is harmonious with existing community by making sure that proposed projects are in line with open space and recreation plan and with existing zoning bylaws. Okay, so I think we have to add one to this.
Community housing?
Yeah, under the community housing goals, because of the feedback that we got, and for the example that, Middleborough had a private developer looking for CPA funds, and I don't see a lot of people being willing to see their tax dollars go to buy it, to create a 40B, you know? So I think it should say something along the lines of, you know, private developments, you know, not to be considered or something like that.
I should go back and watch the Middleborough meeting on that.
Oh, yeah?
But-
The outcome?
There was a developer in Middleborough that went before the CPC board looking for funding towards his project. So I'm gonna go back and watch that meeting. It was very interesting. They
Do you
were gonna
remember the outcome?
Hmm?
Do you remember the outcome?
They were going to talk to someone at the state about it.
Hmm.
And I didn't watch the follow-up meeting,
Oh, so
so.
yes.
The CPC was going to talk to someone about the
Mhm.
state about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, cause they,
Well, we've talked about trying to extend the, low income,
Right,
Threshold?
affordability
Billing.
component.
yeah. Is that acceptable? What we hadn't done anything about it, but we talked about, because we had problems with houses or apartments that were going to lose that.
Oh,
low
Right, if
income.
the affordability is running out,
right.
we
So
had talked about,
that is the thing that we got so we got the information from the coalition. I think we sent it around a couple times. It's a process.
It-
We need to have collaboration with other town departments. The coalition recommends hiring somebody specifically
Yeah.
familiar with it. We definitely need to have a planner in place to work on it, as well as legal. So I think it takes a lot of collaboration. It's definitely something we gotta look at, because it's gonna be here in what,
right. but
10
we-
years is gonna go by really fast. We're
Right,
gonna
somebody
lose-
would have to come to
Question.
us with
Thank
it. It's like
Well, I think it's okay for us to explore those options, send out that information, which I know I've sent it out. But once again, this is something where having joint meetings with other boards and committees and will really help, because, you know, if the select board were to be the ones to sort of obviously budget for those items, planning board to be involved too, because, you know, when it comes to planning, and if we need a town planner to be involved in that undertaking, and then,
So do we know that everybody is aware that this is going to happen within a certain period of time? That not that we would have the funding for people, but that these things are going to go away?
yeah.
And are they working
Yeah.
actively to
they're definitely
try to
going
find a
away.
way of maintaining them, or?
Not that I'm aware of. I don't,
No, really?
so,
I went to a zoning board meeting on purpose to bring it up about LeBaron, and they're doing a whole new thing over here with 25% affordable, and they got, 86 units going off from 20 years ago. Their 40B is still 20 years old and it's still going. So they have these going off the other side, so these don't really help us. If you got 80 going off over here, and you got 20 coming on over here, that is not helping us. So how are you gonna make those stay on?
So does is the coalition have any towns that have done something like that?
yeah, so that.
So there's a precedent.
We've had it in our packet.
Yeah.
So like, he sent an email.
I read that a long time ago,
It
I
was-
think
Yeah,
when
I
you
kinda
first sent it
forgot.
out.
Yeah, so like, I know there was an email from him, it pointed to, it's an article, you know how all the articles they send out, they're also, you can search the coalition website and you can find the articles on the website. So it's an article that talks about the town that did it, that was successful, and then it also has like links and recommended individuals who you can reach out to and connect with for advice on how to
Seems like
do
there
it.
should be a study committee or something put up with all the, a person present from each of the important town, like planning and,
Right, planning.
we don't
select
have
boards,
housing except
zoning.
through Middleborough, but I mean, even somebody, well, not really somebody from us, but somebody from one of the other groups that would all get together and figure out how to do this so that we could get it on, so that we don't lose those.
Right.
And there's some, and the other thing that I had a thing, and you do have rehabilitation on here, is there are some affordables in Lakeville that are, I don't wanna say decrepit, but could use some help. They have like mold and they've been around for a long time, and maybe they got the perpetuity thing, because when I asked town council about perpetuity 20 years ago, when they did those affordables at LeBaron, perpetuity was 20 years. that's why they're going off. They called it perpetuity, but it's really not. And then we have some for 30 years, but, you know, my thing is, would money be available to like rehab some, like,
It can't be used for maintenance.
no,
What
it
we
says
can use
rehab,
this for
rehabilitation.
Oh,
What we can use it for is to match a state or federal grant. So if
We
you,
can.
you have to think we're not the only ones in this situation, and perhaps HUD has some grant making that, and I'm sure there's consultants that specialize in just this and attorneys to fix this. Like,
right.
I think we're better off soliciting someone who wants to bring a project to us that says, hey, I found this grant, I found this consultant, I found this opportunity. Can I get the match? Which is perfect.
Now,
Well-
do people that own the properties have to agree to this, or what if they don't?
No,
What if
so
they
like, I feel
want them
like
to
we're
go
kind of
away?
in three different directions. I feel like Nancy was talking about individually owned subsidized units, and I feel like you're talking about a developer coming in with a new project, and I feel like you're talking about the existing
I'm
units.
talking
that
I'm
we're
about
talking
using.
about the ones
maintaining the
that are
existing.
gonna go away
Okay, so it is.
if something's not done.
But I
So
don't think
nobody's
anybody
gonna
in this
come
room,
to
even if
us?
we all started working together on it full time,
That's not our job.
have the grasp to do
Right.
it.
But so nobody's gonna come to us to say, like, to prevent these from falling off, you know what I mean? It's gonna be up to the town to take that undertaking on.
But is it up to the town or is it up to this? I think either way, it's not up to our committee.
It's not up to our
Yeah.
committee, nope.
So we need a housing authority of our
We do,
own.
we really do.
The bottom line.
Well, I
We need
mean-
somebody interested in housing to move it along. It doesn't even have to be just be a regular person. We need,
We need-
John's our housing person.
I know. No, it's a bigger conversation than this committee, absolutely.
Yeah.
But it's something that I think if we keep it on the radar and
And the money is building up, that actually we'll have some money to do
Right.
something. We just need to figure out.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's unfortunate that, you know, the clock is ticking, but I also don't, like, I think we're available. If someone else that is in a better position than this committee presents us with an opportunity, I think we can absolutely fund it. It's just a matter of,
right.
we need that to happen.
Right.
And that affordable housing is a concern. It's come up every single time we've had a
time.
hearing. So people are worried about it or wonder about it or something like that, so.
Yeah. And
It's
I
not
always
just our ideas.
I always hear the support for senior housing, for veteran housing, you know what I mean? And then it's always, but not 40B. And I think people understand, because whenever a 40B comes in, you have 20 to 25% units that are affordable. The rest of those units are not affordable, and those units are now gonna be making up for the lost money on the buying and selling of those affordable units. So it's actually pushing the overall cost of housing up. So it really does not help keep it down. What helps keep it down, small houses, small lots.
As opposed to multi-housing, multiple housing.
Well, when you have a small lot, it's gonna be denser.
No, but I mean, as opposed to an apartment building or something, a condo or something like that.
I mean, it's great, when you look at the statewide inventory, there's a lot of apartments. And unfortunately, even the apartments are not affordable.
Nobody, yeah, people
know?
don't have the money because of the escalating costs in other areas. yeah.
Right.
And then when we have, starter homes coming in at 3-bedroom size, those aren't gonna help keep it.
No, and we don't have, we only have one, well, we have Blueberry Estates and the individual houses on Main Street that are off, and that back up onto that, those are the only things for.
Ebony Farms. I mean,
Well,
the little-
Woods Edge.
the
Yeah,
little-
by-
Is it
Woods Edge, yeah.
So those are the only two areas that we actually have anything that would be considered senior housing, right?
So, I mean,
Gotcha.
Rhino's project for the 55 plus,
That was,
that's permitted. And
and
then,
it's all in that same area
Yep,
between,
all in the same
Vaughn
area.
Street and Main Street.
and the apartment building on Main Street as well is 55 plus.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Mm,
Without an elevator, right?
without an elevator,
Mm,
right.
Yeah, that's good.
Well, so I know we kind of deviated. So
Yeah,
like,
no,
we were
no,
talking about
that's
adding. So
important.
does it make sense to add something that says private developments not to be considered for CPA funds, or is that not? Should we put 40B developments? Like, should we specify not to be?
But
or
how
creation
can
of
we if
new-
we want to extend their affordability?
But so new is what, if, you know, if a builder
Okay.
comes looking for funding towards his new 40B, that's what the guy that was
Okay.
here at the
All right.
public hearing
So
was saying.
new.
He doesn't want to see
Okay,
his, you know, this going to funding
okay.
a new 40B.
I think
Okay.
that's definitely something the coalition we need to ask about the coalition about, because they would know right away.
Right, or
We
even,
don't
yeah,
wanna
just
put
check and see what
ourselves in a
Middleborough,
financial-
determined, because if they reached out to the coalition, maybe we can hear.
Yeah, I don't think it was a coalition, it was, I don't know, it might have been mass housing or something. I'll have to watch that meeting again,
Okay.
the follow-up meeting.
So you want me to reach out to the coalition and ask them a question
Yeah.
directly about, can CPA funds be used to create a 40B with a private
Or
developer?
maintained. I think one of the issues that we have is that.
But I
these-
think we already know we can maintain,
We
right?
can maintain them.
The
we can-
affordability,
The preserve.
yeah,
like,
preserve the
could
affordability.
Preserve the.
Right.
Yeah, don't
Can
use the
we
word
help them build
maintain because-
more? Can
No.
we give them money to do more than their 25%? I guess is the question.
Oh, that question.
And they would have to be in perpetuity, not with timeline.
I don't know how that would work. Like, we definitely have to have more funds than what we have now to do any of that, though.
Even if it's 1 or 2 units.
Hmm.
You wouldn't have to pay for the whole thing, you just have to do the affordability. Anyway, I think,
I don't know. Yeah, I guess that's something we'd have to reach out to the
Ask.
coalition, or at least check the website, or. So you want me to reach out and ask a question about how CPA funds could be used?
is there any way CPA funds can be used to extend the affordabilities on?
So I know we can, like, the one we've already talked about was extending it.
Yes.
But, and we know we can use it for that, but I don't know if it can be used to create under like a private development. That would be my question, is if a private developer is coming in. And it's,
I think
because it's
that's
supposed
where we're
to
losing, yeah, I think the plan is referencing community housing with
Right.
it's implied that it's community owned, housing authority type.
Exactly,
Right.
exactly.
So we're kind of losing, I think some of us are talking community housing, some of us are talking low income housing, and it's public and
Well,
private.
so the community housing it has to be affordable. It
No,
has
I
to be
understand
affordable.
that, but
But so to your point, I don't think that the funds can be used towards a private development. I think it's supposed to be for a town.
I'm just wondering if there's any loopholes, like the article you were talking about where somebody tried to do it, so I mean,
Right.
I don't think it's a big thing out there, but is there any way?
I can
Curious
read- I can-
about finding what you were talking about.
Right, I'll watch
Okay.
the meeting again, but I'll
yeah, I
also
think
reach
maybe
out
we
to
throw it on the
Middleborough.
agenda next month and we revisit it.
Yeah.
With some answers from Middleborough, some answers from the
Yeah,
coalition.
I'll email them and I'll watch that.
Sounds like a plan.
Yeah.
Okay. But I just wanted to find a way of incorporating what that gentleman said into our criteria, or goals, I mean, to sort of exclude,
Well,
regardless of what the coalition says, if the residents.
we need affordable and senior housing.
Right.
That's the
Right.
bottom line. How do we get there?
Right.
Advice.
Well, up until this point, it's been private, businesses who created them, not anything through the town government.
Right, because we
Right.
don't have a housing
Because we don't,
authority
right.
right now.
Yeah, we use Middleborough.
No. Okay, so I feel like we have a good number of edits to kind of look at. Mainly to the application, step 1, I have the most edits, and then I guess it's trying to find where we fit these into the plan. Do you feel comfortable trying to take it on, Sue? Do you
Sure,
want?
you and I can work together if
Okay.
you want.
Sure, yeah. If everybody's okay with
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Okay. And that way,
I don't mean to dump it all on Sue, but she does the best. She does the best.
like, as long
at
as that's
it.
something you feel like you can take on right now, I don't wanna put it on you if you don't,
I'm good.
yeah?
Yeah, yeah, I'll work with you and we'll get it done. And if I can't, I'll let you know.
Okay. Sounds good. All right, so we have something to start with,
Yes.
some items to look at. And then Nancy, you wanna take yours back to historic, just go over that section?
We'll review it again. And we'll do it at our April meeting.
But so the problem is right now we don't have a parks,
Right.
member. Liz isn't.
Are they waiting till after the election to
Yeah.
appoint a person? Okay.
Yeah, cause they're gonna have to appoint it.
'Cause they have, what,
Unless somebody's
three-
written
They
in,
have 3 open seats.
yeah,
3 open seats on park?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, no one, yeah,
So,
3 write-ins
3 write-ins, hopefully.
for 3 seats.
There's so many kids using the parks.
I know.
I would think there'd be some parents that would.
We'll see.
Okay.
So I guess I could email Liz and David, open space, send, and just ask them to, you know, check their section. And I can email, is Mike still the chair of parks?
Yeah, for one
yeah.
more meeting.
I think so.
I know, right? So maybe we should just, I don't know.
Yeah,
We're
parks,
not
I don't
meeting
know how
again.
we're gonna,
We're not gonna get any good timely feedback, I don't think, from parks. If
right.
there's only, I don't know. I mean, I can email them and see what he says. And I'll just like the same with open space, you know, please review your section of the plan and send us any, you know, requested edits, something like that. And then Sue and I will work on the edits that we know that we want to make, the additions, some language, some definitions.
Yep.
Probably just use the coalition website and maybe look at some other plans from other towns. Okay. So do we feel good about doing that? We'll come back with another
Yeah.
draft in April? Okay. Agenda item number 2, discuss some possible vote on 2025 Springtown meeting handout. So in your packet, we have, I designed it the same way that all of our other handouts have looked with, the project description. Nancy, I just want your feedback on.
Yeah, the second sentence, the restoration work is the second installment. Installment means that you paid so much, which is something, and then you get to pay the rest of the end, but that's not what this is. It's a new application for another project.
Okay.
So I mean, I think you might say the second project
Okay.
instead of installment.
Project of CPA funding requested for continuing repairs on the town.
Project for CPA funding.
Yeah, instead of. There should be a period, I think, in the 4th paragraph after the quotation marks.
Yeah, and after end.
Where?
Right here.
Under consideration
Right
to
there.
that end quotation mark
Oh,
period.
yeah, okay.
Yeah. I don't, are these just bullets or are they actually sentences on each of them? Because the one on paragraph 2, there's no period at the end either.
Okay.
The, you don't want the update yet. I'll hold off on the update. I think other than that, I think it looks good. We don't have any other table stones, but we'll be doing others. They would want to be doing other, older areas of, in that area, so.
Okay. Do you want me to use a different photo then?
Unless you note what this is, this was the previous,
Oh, yeah, put a
project.
caption underneath it maybe?
Yeah, maybe just say this was the 2020
Pictured.
Or
Completed
grant.
project.
project,
Mm.
completed project. So, or part of, maybe part of, because they did for 2 other headstones, some footstones, in addition to these 2, but these 2 were the really expensive because they were really major, especially the one on the left, which is the one that was cracked. That's why it looks different.
Okay, so you want me to say pictured is part of the first completed project of repairs at Thompson Hill Cemetery?
Mhm. That sounds good.
Okay.
Can I say table stones in there somewhere? Not everybody knows what a table stone
Yeah,
is.
you might want to
Tablestone
say
repairs?
table stones.
Stone repairs at Thompson Hill Cemetery?
And if anybody wants to say anything, the historical commission or the cemetery commission would be very happy to talk about this a lot. Because it's a really big deal.
Okay. And you know, so like it'll be presented by this committee, but then anyone can come up and
Yeah.
talk, so that'll be great. For someone to be ready.
I printed that. That was from the coalition when they met with Middleborough. I printed that off the screen.
Yeah.
So do we
So we
need a
could add that,
motion
maybe.
to
Okay.
approve
Oh.
the handout subject to the
Edits.
edits?
Okay. We have a motion?
I moved that.
Okay.
Oh. I
You
said
moved
we
it?
need. No, I said we need, okay.
Okay.
That's
So
so moved.
who-
Yes.
All right, so
Okay, so Nancy's,
the 2 Nancys, got it.
or, well, you moved it. Who's seconding?
Second.
You're
Okay.
seconding. Okay. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, I'll get this over to Andrew as well as the revised budget. I figured I'd wait until we had something else and I'll send it all as a package. So we have everything else set for spring. That's good. Agenda item number 3, review borrowing scenarios. So in your packet, we have, these tables with all sorts of numerical figures. Now this came about because I was curious to know what our bonding capacity is with CPA funds. In talking to the coalition prior to passing CPA, or around when it passed, we had talked to the coalition, what can the CPA fund borrow? Because that's one of the options, is you can borrow against future funds.
Against future revenue coming in.
Correct. So
Interesting, I didn't realize that.
So it would be, so for open space, it would be you'd borrow against the full fund and the open space, but you'd have to still put aside the historic and the housing funds. So these scenarios were generated. I think one is 15 million and then the other is 10 million. And there's just some different, scenarios. As you can see, the amount that's coming out every year is so under 15 million. It far exceeds what we bring in. We have a range from 1.1 million, and then that it looks like it's compounded differently on one page, and then on the second page a little differently. So like you're paying the larger amount up front and then a lesser amount over time, but still, even over time, it's still way more than what we bring in for funds on an annual basis. So looking at this, comparing the 15 or 10, because that's assumed to be like a large parcel of land at this point, because we know the land is expensive. So if you take that and you look and see, we bring in around 200,000 a year. So the fraction of this, it looks like we would probably be able to borrow 3 to 4 million. That could be covered on a yearly basis without any additional funding.
So when we borrow something like that, is it a term of repayment term?
Yep.
Of so long that you would be able,
Yep.
so
Over 20 years.
over 10 years?
20.
Oh, 20 years?
Yeah.
So over 20 years, we would have to set aside money, a part of our revenue each year to go to pay for that loan.
All of it, yeah, it would all go towards the payment back.
The whole
Except-
thing.
Not the whole thing,
Oh,
except,
just
so
a
you'd still
portion.
have to set aside.
Right, I know the four, there's three others besides that one.
And you can't, borrow against the state match, so you're gonna still have that state match that's not gonna be applied to it. But just something, food for thought, because I was curious about it. I thought maybe you all would find it interesting to kind of look at the various borrowing scenarios and just see where we're at right now. So, that was just something for consideration. If anybody has any questions on that, if not, we can move on. Agenda item number 4, review expected state matching percentage from coalition email. It looks like DOR is currently projecting a 15.9% base match for the November 2025 first round CPA trust fund distribution. So it's not as high as last year, but still 15.9% return on our investment in CPA fund. So good to know. Hopefully it doesn't change for the worse. Any questions, comments, concerns on that? No? We approved the minutes. Old business, status updates on approved projects from project liaison.
Okay, I'm doing this for Kathleen. And, no, I'm not doing this one. Yeah, I'm doing this one for Kathleen. This is about the Lakeville Historical Society Belfry Repair, project. We've had such incredibly cold periods of time where they could not get in with the equipment to do what they needed to do. So because the temperatures, the long range projection is that things are warming up, we should start to see something actually happening there in the next couple of weeks. But it's been a kind of wait and see, and then not being able to have the time period where the temperatures were high enough so that they could actually use the hydraulic machinery, so. It looks better now.
Good.
It will get done.
So they are moving forward.
Yeah.
Soon.
So that was the thing. And the other thing, to go back to the project from last year and the proposed project for this year from the Cemetery Commission, is that at the Cemetery Commission's meeting the other day, they approved the request by the Historical Commission and the 175th Anniversary Committee that the first event for the town's anniversary celebration which is in 2028, will start this year in 2025, the fall of 2025, and they are hoping that that the appropriation is approved at town meeting, and that the work goes through and is finished by the fall, and we will be doing a historic walking tour of the cemetery, Thompson Hill Cemetery, and some of the notable individuals who are buried there, including Phoebe and her husband, who have the table stones, that we'll be talking about them. And we actually have pictures of them through the Lakeville United Church of Christ's historian, Maureen Baird, has copies of, photocopies of pictures of both of them. So we'll have a lot more information about people that should be interesting,
Yeah.
So
now just out of curiosity, how are you gonna, publicize that? Is it gonna be in the newsletter? Will it be?
Well, in the town newsletter too. That's one of the things that we'll probably start talking about it. Okay. So that people can kind of anticipate this is going to come up, and then we'll be doing focuses on individuals. There is a certain level of sensitivity involved, that because if we have people whose descendants now live in Lakeville, that we would be very careful about making sure that no one was offended by what was going to happen. Mm-hmm. But it should be a very positive experience, because we'll be talking about, people who had a major contribution to West Middleborough at that time, and then later into Lakeville when it was after 1853. So it should be fun.
Great.
So we're not sure if we're going to actually be in costume or if we're just going to be presenters. It's, it will depend on how many volunteers we can get from maybe the drama. But we always, I know New Bedford does a number of their cemeteries this way, and they usually have, if it's somebody from the 1920s, then they have people dressed appropriately for that time period. And frequently they get people who just like to do it, but have maybe a theater background. So we'll probably be approaching Apponequet to say, the drama club, do you have people that would be interested? So Of course, it would be in the fall, so it would probably be somebody who maybe could come back as a senior, graduating senior and do something, but. So we're looking at all possibilities, and you don't, and to participate as a presenter, you don't have to be a Lakeville resident. You could be Middleborough resident, because Middleborough's history and our history was the same and has overlapped continuously since that time.
That's
So
great.
it's gonna be fun, you know, and people can see, we'll be able to see some stones that have not been repaired. And they'll be able to see what the project, where the CPC money was actually used to preserve a important historic aspect.
That's great. I love the idea of having an event that's now
And
going
we would
to
invite-
showcase what CPA funds are doing.
And this
That's
was,
great.
this is a free event, there's not
Yeah.
any charge for this. And it would also be a thing where we invite all town residents to come and also to participate if you have a burning desire to be Phoebe, talk about Phoebe. We would love you to do that, you know, I mean, it would be, I think it would be interesting and fun. So it's informative, it's casual, and what we'll probably be doing is, once we know about how we're going to determine what to do with the population that wants to attend, we will probably group people so that everybody's not gonna be at the first person, we'll spread them out throughout the cemetery or something. We'll find out how other cemeteries are done,
it.
so that we will not be behind the 8 ball, but.
Awesome. That's exciting.
Yeah, well, a lot of it, we planned on doing this anyways, but the fact that the CPC money was available to repair those very rare table stones
In time for this.
makes it even more wonderful than looking at them on the ground in his
I know,
craft,
right?
you know, or only like this high above
Or
the
not
ground.
being able to tell what it says, because now they're
Yeah, they
cleaned up
clean the
and
stones too,
stored.
so.
Yes.
And of course, Jean Dillette wrote the book about the cemeteries of Lakeville, and she talked about the inscriptions on everything. So we have that to also use, and so that's another major contribution to the information about ancestry research for people that want to go and see where their ancestors are buried. So that's a really great gift that she gave to the town too.
Awesome. All right, two
Okay.
good updates. Any other?
I've talked to Melissa and Mike,
Yeah.
and they seem like, well, we've got till November. So I'm about to interject myself probably into a park meeting, because you can't start in November and think they're
No.
gonna get their quotes or whatever it is and see. I'll wait till after the election, but maybe an April meeting, I'm just gonna say, hey, you know,
Well, maybe they're waiting to see what happens after the election, if they get some more support. But then also, I mean, if the town is, I don't know I haven't heard if they're going back to try to de-enterprise, if that's gonna change anything, or I have no idea.
well, it's
But it sounds like
basically
there's a
just
lot in
going out for the
flux.
build on the design, you know, the engineering on the design.
Right.
It's not that difficult of a task, and the thing is, they use the excuse of all the kids are in the programs, all the kids are in the programs, all the kids are in the programs, we're busy, but now it's been all winter and the programs are starting up again.
Right.
So,
Well, I also would hate to see them rush just to get a plan and then not move forward with it and spend
True.
20 grand for nothing.
Right.
So
Right.
I'd hate to rush them to get that done, but then not have any funding available for the rest of it or whatever else they're doing. But,
just the bathrooms. Even, you
right,
know,
because there's still a question about the water, I thought.
Right.
there's a well there. You don't need potable water for a bathroom.
But you can't wash your hands with that water, though, right?
Yeah,
I think that was,
I thought they had to bring in a hand washing station though. I don't know.
Yeah, they would bring in
Yeah.
water for drinking.
Do they already have a hand washing station there?
There was like a portable one they brought in.
They brought in a porta john, and it's probably got sanitizer
Sanitizer.
inside, actually. Anyway,
All right, is that it
it's
for?
only what, March,
Yeah,
you know?
Right.
right.
So
Mid-March.
that's April, May, June, July. I don't think it'd be rushing if they get started pretty soon, because
Right.
November, I forget the exact date in November.
It'll be here before we blink though.
Right.
right.
Any additional photos? Nothing yet? No, okay. If anybody gets any photos they want to share, let us
Okay.
know, we'll circulate them. Our next meeting date will be April 17, 2025, 6:30 PM here at the police station. I do want to possibly discuss after the election, just make sure what days work well for people, because I know John is having difficulties getting here on Thursdays. So, you know, I don't want to have that conversation without a full, committee
Right.
here anyway. So we'll just keep that on the back burner and see.
It would have been helpful to have him here tonight, or
Yeah.
to talk about when we're talking about the housing, and he's
Right.
our housing person, so.
Well, I wonder if he could look at the housing portion and send any notes.
Right, I mean, he
Maybe.
always has the opportunity to watch the meetings, and if he wants to send in comments, I can definitely communicate that to him as well, that we'd welcome his input. And
Did he indicate any nights that worked better for
well,
him?
he was
or-
saying that, I think he said Mondays or Wednesdays, either Wednesdays and some Mondays, or Mondays and some Wednesdays,
That he can or cannot.
that
Ken,
work better.
Yeah, they
Monday?
changed his schedule on him.
So, and of course, those are
So
my-
at least he could come once in a while, because he hasn't
Right.
been here for a while.
Right.
Well, do any of our meetings
Mondays work
occur on
best.
Monday of our original committees? Like, for instance, open space
That's what I
or,
don't know. I think they were meeting on Thursdays, the first, I'm not sure. That's why we have to have a full committee to
Right.
even discuss it. He
And
said
park-
Wednesdays and most Mondays now work best, so. We'll have that conversation in another meeting.
motion to adjourn?
Yep,
So
motion,
moved.
Second.
second, all in favor?